The best way that we can protect our people is to cooperate. That's the solution, not to isolate ourselves.
Welcome back to this week's episode of The Executive, the show where we navigate the intricate world of executive leadership, exploring strategies, insights, and personal stories of successful professionals shaping the global business landscape. I'm your host, Majid, and joining us today is someone very special for the first time ever on The Executives, the former Prime Minister of Sweden. It's an honor today for me to welcome Stefan. Stefan is the former Prime Minister of Sweden from 2014 till 2021 and a global advocate for social democracy, sustainability, and international cooperation. From trade union to the head of government, he has championed economic equality and climate action and continues to shape global conversations on leadership, governance, and democracy. He is currently the chairperson of SIPRI. Let us welcome Stefan. Hej och varmt välkommen till The Executive, Stefan.
Tack så mycket. Thank you.
Tack
så mycket.
Tack så mycket. Thank you. Okay. I tried to do justice by quickly introducing you to the audience, but I would like to give you the stage so you can tell more about, for people to understand who you are. Who is Stefan?
I'm 67 years old. I was born here in Stockholm, but raised a bit up north in the country as a foster child. I became a welder working in the industry, the famous company up north. And in that job, I became active in the trade union, trying to improve work environment, wages, and all that we do in trade union. Over the years, I first became the deputy president of the Swedish Metalworkers Union, but then we merged with another industrial union, so I then became the first president of that new union, IF Metall. But after about 6 years, I was elected the president of the Social Democratic Party in Sweden. And as you said, from 2014 in the autumn, October, I became Swedish Prime Minister and stayed there until 2021. When I stepped down, I chose not to run again because I wanted to do other things, and I thought it was time for a new president in our party. So, and after that, I had the honor of becoming, among other tasks, becoming the chairperson of the governing board of SIPRI, and that's a huge honor for me. But that's my life in a short.
That's cool. I mean, you started from ground up. That's the best example that you can get, right? You to the top, and now you're doing some really cool stuff with SIPRI. But before we jump into the serious topic, I have a fun little question for you. So everyone gets bored, right? Everyone gets bored.
Bored, yeah.
So what is your activity that I am bored and I want to do something, you know? It's not work. It's not going to be...
Well, I like reading a lot. I like watching movies or perhaps some sport. A football, a real good football game. I like that.
Do you play or do you...
I did play as a young boy, but not now anymore. But football is my number one sport, so I like to watch football. Now, yesterday I watched Sweden in the Ice Hockey World Championship. We beat Czechia, so that was nice. So, yeah, a little different kind of amusement.
That's true. I mean, movies is always good. Movies. Now I struggle watching movies. I don't know why. I cannot watch a movie in a single sitting.
Is that so?
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, I just get sort of bored, you know, like after half an hour, like, no, you know what, I need to do something else.
Yeah.
But today we are sitting because we have a very fancy topic. It's leading through change, innovation, sustainability, and the future of global leadership. Because the whole reason why I started this is I also want to use this as a platform to share with the younger generation the key points in leadership, in corporates, and also politics. Politics is also for me a profession. So it's also a form of leadership, and it's also you're trying to run a country. So you mentioned briefly that you started from being a welder, and then you moved up to trade union, and then basically leading a country. Not everyone has the privilege, or not everyone wants to do that. But what were the key lessons that you had during like the whole journey?
I have some key components, I think, that's important in leadership. And that is, one is to include people, make sure that you include people in different processes and dialogue, because in my experience is that the best result is when people are included, you get different point of views, and then you finally have to make a decision. Yes, but including people is for me getting a good result. I think leadership is about also making visible what the vision is. This is where we're heading, this is a path. We might be forced to step out of that and do something here or do something there, but we always keep our eyes on where we're going. But sometimes you need to make compromises. Still going forward, but perhaps not exactly the way you thought. So that is also important. A third one for me is that you must make sure there is enough oxygen around you, so that people that you cooperate with can grow and develop and find. So you have to draw out the best of each and every individual, and that is so. Those are some of the experiences that I learned from, and that I also components that I think is important in leadership.
You touched one point about bringing the best out of the people, right? Maybe let's talk a little bit about that. How, like for example, me who becomes a director or a VP or something in a company, how can I make sure that I'm actually getting the best out of the people? Because it's important, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Again, so that everybody needs to know on what path we are, where are we heading. This is the overall vision. But also after that, you can't just walk through vision, you have to set goals and then decide on a strategy to meet these goals. So everybody needs to be aware of all these things. You can't keep that for yourself and expect people to do the right thing. And then, of course, also to a constant dialogue with people. So what are your tasks now for us to reach that? What can you deliver, so to speak, and what can you provide in that? And also be ready to support people. It could be some kind of training, or it could be something else that this individual needs in order to perform her or his best. So that I think is important.
Nicely put. I mean, it is important. That's very, very true. I mean, and then when you were growing, right, everyone has sort of these defining moments for leadership, right, that basically shape the way you are and the way the people perceive you. So what were the moments for you, and how did you navigate them?
I think the first concrete moment was quite new as a welder and member of the Swedish Metalworkers Union was when at our workplace we had no chairs and no table. When we were drinking coffee or something, we were sitting on boxes on the floor. And I thought this is not dignified enough. We have to be able also to sit on decent chairs, and when we have our coffee and our sandwiches. That was first trade union activity. And later, my colleagues, we were a quite small team, 6, 7 workers, asked me if I wanted to become their as we call it, contact person, representing them in our trade union. So that was the first defining moment. Then when I stepped into trade union, and I thought this is so exciting, this is so interesting, and then we started this. We wanted to improve, as I said, work environment and wages and all that. And forming that united goal and pushing for it and negotiating with the company, and that was a very good time for me. Another one was when the National Trade Union, after a number of years, asked me if I wanted to start work at the head office here in Stockholm. I was a bit hesitant because the employer, our owner, had decided to close our shop, our company, close down, move that production. So I didn't want to leave directly because I didn't just want to escape, go away. So I mean, it would mean that I had a positive thing waiting for me, but I wanted to stay until everybody else also. I wanted to walk out with them. But then I took that step, moved to Stockholm, and that was a new stage. To working at the national level, but it was very, very interesting. And then, of course, something that I did not expect and had not dreamt of, actually, was to become the party leader. But party was in quite deep crisis during 2011, beginning of 2012, and then we needed to elect a new party leader, and then people started to look at me, and I said first no, because I wanted to stay in the trade union. But then, when I think about it, I always functioned in a way that if we discuss something and we agree this is important to do something about, I can't say it's important, but I'm not going to do it. It's impossible. So you could have a good reason for reject, yes. So and that you have to respect. But I didn't have that good reason. So I said yes, and then a new step, a new stage, becoming a party, going into politics fully. I've always been active in politics, because as a trade unionist, a trade union leader, you're also active in politics. But this is something different, being a party leader. So that was a totally new moment. And of course, becoming the prime minister is, I mean, such an honor to represent your country, and that was marvelous time. Hard work, but very, very interesting.
So when you learned that you are the Prime Minister of Sweden, how did you feel, or how did you celebrate? Like,
I don't know if I celebrated, but of course, I mean, it's as I said, I had never thought about it. Not, and that's honest. I hadn't thought about it. So once you're there, you just do your best, but I had a wonderful time. Very busy, very hard work. We had a refugee crisis, of course. We had a pandemic, and we had a terrorist attack here in Stockholm City, killing 5 people. So that was hard, but I also saw so many good sides, not least Sweden, traveling around the country, visiting schools or factories or hospitals or whatever, seeing all these fantastic work that is being done in the country, but also noting that people, other leaders in other countries, looked at Sweden mostly in a positive way. So that was also rewarding.
Pandemic was completely unexpected. I mean, no one was prepared. No one knew nothing. What will happen? How will we take care? Then on a country scale, it's very different than just running an organization with 100, 200, 300, 500 people, right? We are talking about every single thing, the health system. Like, I mean, Germany was still okay. They had a good system. I think Sweden also has a good system, but suddenly there's so much strain that you need more lungs doctors, but you cannot find one. You need people who are able to give the vaccine when there was this, when the vaccination came out. But it was like a whole plan. They had to figure out, like, how do we get people? Because every country was trying to figure it out from themselves, right? So that was probably like I think a very, very challenging thing, right? You want to protect your people.
Yes, it was. It was so unpredictable, and when this pandemic broke out, we didn't know how long it would take.
Yeah.
It could be 5. I told my ministers, plan 5 years ahead. Think 5 years ahead with this pandemic. Then, of course, and they told us a vaccine, 10 years probably, if you're lucky, 6, 7 years. And we were so lucky to have it within 1 year.
True.
But exactly as you said, everyone was, this is a bad way of protecting your people, believing that this can be done domestically in our country. The best way would have been to see Europe, US, China, UK and other players that could develop and produce a vaccine or substances to a vaccine, sit together around the table and say, okay, how many do we need? Doses? How many do we need to train to be able to do these things all over the world? What do we need to do for the logistics to work? All that should be done together, because now everybody held on. We had a substance that was a European substance in US, was supposed to be shipped to Europe, but the Americans held on to it, although they didn't use it, but they just held on. Everybody held on to what they had, and this is bad leadership, because in my view, leaders should have met and said, the best way that we can protect our people is to cooperate. That's the solution, not to isolate ourselves. So that was very frustrating to see.
I mean, now, recently this has started changing, right? That people are now getting together back in, Europe is trying to get back in, UK is trying to get back with the European Union, right? I feel that people realize that there is also this quote, right? Alone you walk fast, together you walk far. So I think it really does matter, right? That if you want to walk far, then you have to work together.
Yeah.
And we believe it or not, but we live in a sort of a flat world where travel is so easy. It takes me 11 hours to get to Pakistan. I mean, there's no direct flight, but if there was a direct flight, it would be 7 hours. So from Germany, but it changes the whole game, right? So that people need to sit together, talk together, discuss how can they support each other, right? Because maybe one country is good with one thing, the other one is good with another thing. And then the population, the production and so on, like you mentioned rightly. But I mean, I have a lot of audience who is younger, and they want to make an impact, but they feel sort of disillusioned by politics and the whole leadership structure. They feel that it's too complex maybe, but we also need younger people to step in, right? I think Sweden is doing a good job there, but in other countries, it's not the case. So what would you tell the younger generation, like, why should they step into politics or also leadership roles?
I met a high school class yesterday, just out north of Stockholm here, and we discussed democracy and development, and I told them it's good to have a dream about your life. What do you want to become? If you have a dream, or if that dream comes later, doesn't matter, but to vision yourself where you want to be. That's a good thing. But it's also a good thing to dream about what kind of society you want to live in. And political decisions are made by human beings in different forums, be it local, in the communities, or regional, or national, or European, or global. But it's human beings that will take all the political decisions. So, beside dreaming of what kind of society you want, also ask yourself, what can I do to build that society that I want? And make no mistake, there will be a development of the world. The question is, in what direction do you want it to go? And the space you leave will be filled by someone else. There's no vacuum in a democracy. There's no place where nobody is. It will be filled. So So even if you don't want to be 100% engaged in a political party, I'm sure that there are issues that you really want to do something about, be it technology or climate or environment or other things. Engage in that issue. And I urge you to also engage in a political party because, again, it's a political forum that will take those decisions that will affect your life and try to affect that in
If we want or we don't want, things like taxes, things like, health systems and things like social security, they eventually come to you. Like Germany is also like trying to come up with a better solution for the social security system. Like they are also struggling, right? I mean, but they see a problem and they're trying to solve it. So I think it's also important that younger generation also like jumps in, like otherwise.
We need the younger. That's how it's always worked. The younger generation come and pushing for what I was once young. So of course we were eager. We wanted to push for the things that we believed in, and that's how it must work. So that we younger need to replace older. That's how. And again, if we don't do that, someone will be there. Taking all the decisions. And today we can see around the world that we have too many autocrats trying to decide exactly how things should be. Trump being one of them, Orban another one, and so the Putin not least in Russia. So if we want them to decide our destiny, well, okay, stay passive. But if you don't want that, engage.
I mean, dialogue doesn't hurt, right? So at least, and then it's like a company. So for me, a country is like a company. That's what I always think of. That maybe there's someone at the like intern level who doesn't understand, who has a problem, but the CEO doesn't even know about the problem. How should he fix something that he doesn't even know?
No. But then again, the risky thing with comparing it to a company is that you believe that you have a CEO that will take all the decisions.
True.
And that is not. I get your point, but we have to regard a country as something that, again, how do you include people and build that society that people feel okay, I have my place in this society. And I have a place also when the society changes. I know that I have my place also in 10 years, in 15 years. So and that requires inclusion.
True.
So that people are on board.
I mean, this is important, and also for still talking about younger generation, also sustainability. The younger generation is pretty, like, they want to talk about sustainability, and Sweden is famous for sustainability, right? They have been doing a lot of sustainability efforts. What policies do you believe are actually important for a country to make sure that they are moving towards a greener economy?
I think what we did as a government when we decided on a structure for this work, you have to have, again, there's a vision, but we have to have a strategy as well and goals. So deciding for a net zero emission, which we did now 2045, and then goals for the housing sector, the industry sector, the transport sector, because they contribute a third each, roughly, of all the emissions that we have in Sweden. So, but then that requires a change from the cars that we have today to electric cars or something else that do not pollute. And that means that the society, politics, democracy need to cooperate with the academia and the enterprises so that we support a development for the new technology to come in. And the other thing is to make sure that, and that will sometimes create some, not fear, but uncertainty among people. Okay, what will happen with my job in this transition? And then we just make sure that we're doing this together. Again, inclusion. we don't tell people you handle that yourself. We tell people we're gonna support one another. We need to do this transition. It's absolutely crucial, because if we don't, and we have a 3-4 degrees heating, that will be a catastrophe. That will be the highest price. So we have to make sure that people are included, so we can support people. We introduced, as an example, financial support for people. If you bought an electric car, a car with zero emission, we supported that with around 7,000 euros. So that will make it easier for the individual to make that choice. And we also made sure that with a lot of electric cars, we need to make sure there's an infrastructure for charging. So we started to build that. So as a society, you set the goal, but you also show how do you reach those goals, and making sure that we do this together, that you don't leave people just, okay, sorry, there's a change, do the best you can. We're doing it together. And when we do things together, we can achieve a lot.
Did Sweden also have something around renewable energy policy, like solar panels and so on?
Oh yes, a lot. So mostly wind power. I mean, just let's say 20 years ago, wind power, I think, contributed 1-2% of all the electricity. Now it's 20.
Oh, that's good.
So it's grown a lot. And solar panel, yes. So that is growing. We have another problem with that because it's more volatile. So you have to now, and because of that, new technology again is developed to make sure that you can store electricity. So when you produce the most, store, and when you need it, use it. So, and that is how we need to see this, that this contributes to building the future welfare, because with new technology, you have new jobs. New jobs is what we need to build the future welfare. So instead of looking at this as a very dangerous thing and we don't want to do this, we look at it in a positive way. This is both reducing emissions, which is absolutely crucial for this planet, and we're building a better society with new jobs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when you were in office that time, I think AI was not that like now how it is now. But did you perceive there was something coming like that? Because normally, like you mentioned, right, you're always thinking 5 years ahead, or 10 years ahead for the country. Did you guys have like a perception that something like AI could actually come?
Yes, it was also discussed at the time. Then now it is more or less exploding, the development. So, but yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what role do you think government should have? Because now the government actually has to be very active with AI, because the way AI is, like you mentioned, exploding, it's massive. Like in a week's time, what AI could do a week ago is already very outdated. And it's also like getting scarily realistic, So what, in your opinion, should the governments do?
Well, first, to make sure that we have the knowledge that is, and that is, of course, academia, but also you need to make sure that knowledge is spread also in the school system, so that people know about AI, what it is. That's one thing, and making sure that everybody has that, because with AI also in the world, we can see the knowledge gap could be widening and widening and widening, and that creates a problem in itself. So I think domestically you need to make sure that it's distributed in a fair way, but also globally. I think that's very, very important. Another thing is to discuss AI. So it could be negative things with AI as well, used in a negative way. So you have to be aware of that and try to, in dialogue with other countries, how should we act to make sure it is a positive development, and we can try to to protect ourselves from the negative. That's a totally different discussion, but needs to be. We need to have that discussion.
So now these big companies, right, like Google, Microsoft, Alibaba, all these big players who have a lot of money and they have the tech workforce as well. They started building these systems like ChatGPT, or ChatGPT is a separate entity itself. So what do you think can the governments actually do that they don't become so powerful? Otherwise, if power is abused, then it can be very disastrous.
I think, again, this is a field where you can see clearly the need for global cooperation. It's an irony, I think, that with globalization that has created a lot of good things, but also some problems, came a kind of disappointment among people that our national politicians can't decide the way they did before because of globalization. And to me, it's a result of that too weak leadership in forming that regional, meaning in our case, European and global forums where we can deal with these issues that are regional or global. So this is yet another example of things that need to be dealt with between countries, because you need that volume, that force to counter these giant enterprises. You can't do that country by country, but come together, get together, and decide what we as a society want from AI and other technology as well, technological development. This is the society's ambition, and also what we do not want, and in a dialogue with these tech giants, make sure that we push for that.
I mean, when you look at, I come from the tech industry, so, but when I talk to people who are not from the tech industry, they are genuinely scared that, hey, you know what, AI will kill my job, AI will kill my job. I think the point you mentioned about lack of education, and also the point that you made about lack of discussion, and it is happening. Like one feature released from these tech giants erases like companies that have raised hundreds of millions. Recently it happened. I saw there was an entire industry built for the whole speech to text. So companies raised money from VCs, like a lot of things happen, and suddenly one of these tech giants released a feature, all of them wiped out. Because you don't need anything, you just press a button, you see that there. So people, imagine how many jobs were lost and suddenly. And those are tech people, they will find something. But then you have the people, like also the normal working class, right? People working in a shop, people working in post and so on. They are genuinely scared with what's going to happen next for them. And no one is saying, you know what, no, we need to figure it out. So, and you have been constantly saying that we need to think of it as a society.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about the consequences. I'm not afraid of technological development per se. I think it has provided a lot of good, and we can't stop it. You can't take a political decision and say, no, we stop the technological development. It will happen. And what we see is also, going back to the 1800s or 1700s even, so we see when the industry had its very, very strong, sharp development, that created also a lot of fear. And it is natural. And that is why the society we need as a society, say, hey, yes, there will be a change. We have to correct for all the bad things that we do not want to see. But we can do this together. And with new technology also comes new jobs. I remember a quote from one of our, at the time, local trade union leaders in the western Sweden at the SKF. Company, and he was asked once, because the company had invested in a new machine, and that meant also that the number of people was reduced. So he was asked by this journalist, well, aren't you afraid of this new technology? And his answer was, no, I'm afraid of the old technology. Knowing that with old technology, you won't stay in competition, so you have to do this. And that created new jobs, new opportunities, new jobs. So it's not like with technological development, it will be decreased employment. It's not an automatic thing. But we have to create, of course, these new jobs again. Where will they be developed? But there will always be a change. And that is when you need these mechanisms so that people, if my job disappears, I know that I will be helped, supported to another job with training, education, whatever you need. But also, if you can't work in between these jobs, you need a financial support. So make sure that you can pay the rent and you can provide what your family needs and so on. If you have those components in place, that will at least make it less fearsome for people in general.
I 100% agree. And I think there's where the government jumps in as well, right? I don't know about Sweden, but in Germany, they try to help you. If your skill is dying out, they say they pay for it. Yeah. You go and get trained. Right. The only thing you have to do is study. Yeah. So, and they have career counselors, so they have a whole department actually. It's called Agentur for Arbeit in Job Center. So basically they help to figure out if something is going out. They say that, you know what, learn this is what we are seeing, the trend, because they see reports. Is it also the case in something like that in Sweden?
They see the reports?
They see the trends in jobs,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because also you mentioned about the whole, if you're learning, it's basically you're spending the whole day studying and then you have no time left to do a job. So how do you support yourself and family if you have family?
Yeah, again, with financial support on your way to this new job, you need that. That's the right to reskill, new training, but also the right to financial support during this time. Because again, we need to look at, it's like with the climate, it's not a threat, it's a possibility. So, because I used to say that if we wanted the 1960s technology, we would have the welfare of 1960. But with 2030s technology, we can have the 2030s welfare. So that's why we can't stay here. So we are moving, but we're moving together, and we're supporting one another. That's crucial. If we don't do that, people will resist the change, rightly so, because I've seen it over the years that in countries, in societies where there is no support for individuals, of course they resist. But if we have a fair and solidarity in our society where we help one another, the change is easier, and that's better for the society as well.
It's like a partnership, right? That the government is helping the people are helping, because at the end of the day, if you have jobs but no one to work, then also the government gets hit, right? So the whole system falls apart. No taxes, no sales tax, or no coming in. But one question I was like, when I tried to do like a survey among the people I know, I was like, hey, tell me, like, I'm getting such an influential person on the show. Like, what should I ask them? I got one question. I also thought about it, but I would like to give it to you. Beyond voting, because people often think politics, my job is go on the election day, vote, come out, and I'm done. I don't need to do anything else. But beyond voting, what can younger people do to actually influence policy making?
Yeah, that's I think where we started, to be active, because voting rights are very important in a democracy, of course, but democracy is so much deeper. It's also, democracy is the only governing form that actually include people. Everybody has his or her rights to speak, to write, to gather in a trade union or another organization, to demonstrate. So democracy provides that. And the best way for people to really both protect, develop the democracy and make your own voice heard is to use all these tools in different ways. So speak up when you want to speak up, and join the organization you think is the one for you, and do your part in the society. I think that John F. Kennedy is saying is still very relevant. Don't ask what the country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Something in line with that, I think is, and I do think that most people do want to belong to something that is larger than myself, that I'm part of something. And that could be an organization, that could be a community and whatever, but I think that is more fulfilling for people to feel that, yes, I'm part of something. And if you can feel that and engage, make use of your democratic rights. Because if politicians don't know what you're thinking, well, they might take very wrong decisions.
And also, they're not magicians, right? They are not people who can read the brains of people. I mean, whenever I work also, I tell my team that, hey, if you have feedback, give it to me, because I don't do magic. I don't know how to read brains. So if you don't tell me, consider it's never shared. So, I mean, what's the worst case that happens? I will say, yeah, no, we cannot do that. But we will have a discussion then. You know, and that's, I think, what you're also saying, that we need to bring it to the attention of the governments, right? But like, we have smaller nations as well, right? So, for example, countries with less population. What role can smaller nations play in maintaining global peace, economic stability, and cooperation?
Well, first, what happens domestically in the country, if you can provide your part of peace and stability, that helps, of course. But mostly, I would say, engaging in international forums like the European Union. In today's world, where Russia's full-scale attack on Ukraine, for example, if we hadn't been a member of the European Union now, I would be more worried than because now we're a member of this. It's some 450 million people, a very interesting market for the whole world. I think we have some 80, at least, trade agreements all over the world, meaning that European Union is interesting. So, and Swedish foreign policy is through the European Union. So that is the volume you need in terms of population, economy, diplomacy, and all that to balance towards both US and China and other big powers. So I would say being engaged, making sure you know what you want domestically, you contribute with, we can contribute with this in our land, but engage.
So no, I actually agree with that as well, because I think, like you kept mentioning, right, that you need the people involved. So you need to educate them, you need to involve them, because if you have someone who's not capable or who doesn't even understand the problem, he'll probably ignore the problem or will never be aware of the problem, right? I don't blame any one of them. I say that it's a discussion, right?
Right.
Like Mandela also said, Nelson Mandela said, right, you need to sit down on a table and talk. So like, I think I've read it multiple times, and it's always good, like always, with any context, because miscommunication can happen very easily.
Oh, yeah.
So because cultural differences, language differences, like just perception differences, experience differences can lead to so much confusion between people that it can cause chaos.
True.
Right? But now the next question I have is more like talking about SIPRI. What is your role with SIPRI? What do you do?
I'm the chair of the governing board. So SIPRI is an institute. It's very important for SIPRI to be an independent institute because we provide facts. And those who read and listen to SIPRI messages must really rely on the fact that these are facts. This is not opinions, these are facts. And in order to do so, you need to be independent. So the governing board is of course we're governing, make sure that the economy works, that the organization works, and all that. But individual projects and individuals' efforts here is not directed by the board. It's within the institutes, its leadership, and so on. That is very important perspective of SIPRI.
And what does your day look like with SIPRI?
But I have other engagements as well. So, but that could be being here, discussing with the director or the deputy director, or meeting with the staff. I can learn a lot here. There's so much knowledge in this institute, and since I'm still active in not least when it comes to peace and development, there's so much here to facts information that I can get from SIPRI. So it's although making sure that the right distance is there between the board and the institute, there's a lot you can learn here.
I mean, they publish a lot, and it's all about the facts, right? Like you mentioned. That's why I was curious to know what does like a day look like for the chairperson.
Again, so I'm not involved in these individual projects on that. It's an academic institute, and that it needs its integrity, and that's important.
Yeah. And also it needs to be super neutral, right? So not that it's perceived that, no, they are leaning towards this country or that country. So it becomes harder as well.
But it can also, so SIPRI can have three pillars. One is facts, and publish that. The other is also SIPRI can develop policies based on these facts. How do we, for example, build peace in the best possible way? Peace agreements and that. And the third is SIPRI can be a forum for dialogue. And being such a reliable institute with respect around the world, so if SIPRI can, and if someone wants to have a platform for dialogue, you can use SIPRI. So those, I would say, are the three main pillars of SIPRI.
That's cool. I mean, it's also important, right? We have neutral parties. But now, because we are also coming more or less towards an end, we are seeing that the world is changing very rapidly. I mean, it is now thanks to technology progress as well. We are seeing a lot of things changing. So what do you see as the biggest challenges that the world will face in the next 10 to 20 years? And how should the future leaders or the current leaders actually prepare for it?
We have, again, the climate and the environment issue, technology, AI. Unfortunately, a negative development when it comes to weapons of mass destruction. Nuclear weapons, as an example, is going in. So there's a lot of issues. The problem right now is that is combined with more of isolation. So instead of strengthening the multilateral cooperation, countries are choosing to move away from it. U.S. being a sad example. Away from the World Health Organization, away from the World Trade Organization, cutting its aid, meaning that poor people around the world are suffering. Many countries cutting aid for an ODA, as we say, which is both sad and actually also stupid, in my view, because it will create a world that with more problems that we have to deal with it. We have to deal with these consequences. So now I think now for those countries, regions that really believe in a multilateral cooperation, make sure you gather now and stabilize as much as we can to make sure that we protect, and not only protect UN in the way that it's need to stay as it is. We need to develop the United Nations, but we need a United Nation because all the climate and all these issues that I mentioned need a multilateral dialogue. So I think now Europe needs to strengthen itself, but reaching out to Latin America, US is not there anymore, but reach out to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, and so make sure that we want to do the best we can with this multilateral cooperation. And then, of course, develop it as fast as possible. That I think now is the most pressing effort we need to take on.
You served the office for about 7 years. Because we are discussing very serious topics, I want to change the mode a little bit. Do you remember like a funny story from your time at the office that you still think about and you find it hilarious, that you can share with, of course, the listeners?
Oh yes, I received a lot of letters from children.
Okay.
Yeah, children around the country. And I loved reading these. They could be engaged in environment and climate and all that. It could be very. But there were two children, a brother and a sister, if I recall this right. They wrote and they said, "We have asked our parents about a monkey. We want to have a monkey," and the parents said no. So now they wrote to the Prime Minister and asked him for help. And I remember I put that letter down and I thought it was so cute. And I had to reply, in a politically correct way that the parents, you need to listen to your parents, and I can understand you're dreaming you want a monkey, and so on. But I remember that was and often I think the funniest experiences and the warmest experience is actually I have had with kids, with children and also youth, because they're so lively, they're so direct, and so just this idea when the father and mother says no to a monkey, we write to the PM and see what happens. But I disappointed them. I'm sorry, I disappointed. I couldn't do that. But
I mean, that's a reasonable thing to do, right? Mom, dad said no to having a monkey, not even ice cream or something, to a monkey. So they basically send a letter to the PM. That's freaking amazing. But what's next for you? I mean, how do you plan to continue contributing to the global discussions on leadership, sustainability, and innovation?
Well, I co-chaired a high-level advisory board preparing for the Summit of the Future. General Assembly's Summit of the Future resulted in a Pact for the Future. Now we need to follow up on that and see what happens. Financing, as I said, we need more of investment around the world, not least in poorer countries. So we need to reshape the multilateral financial system, World Bank, IMF, regional development banks, and of course private sector as well. How can we structure this so that we can invest? Africa being one of the examples. We have so many poor peoples, other countries as well, but not least Africa. And that continent is huge. And we must start regarding this also as an opportunity, that if we can support poor countries, people around the world, that would mean if we can lift them out of poverty into some kind of middle class, that would mean a good future for them, but also for the rest of the world. Stop looking at this as a zero-sum game between poor and rich. Start looking at it as a win-win. So now in Spain, and beginning of July, there's a financial summit in Seville, and where these discussions will take place. So that is one thing I will do. I will travel also to New York in September for meetings connected to the General Assembly meeting, and of course SIPRI is still providing facts. SIPRI is such a reliable partner for so many. So representing SIPRI, of course, in different dialogues, how we can strengthen the work for peace and development. is another important topic and task. So there's a lot to do.
Cool. And with that, I would like to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining in today, Stefan. This was very different than any episode. It was very insightful and also fun. Also, you shared a lot of knowledge that new for me as well. But is there something you would like to say as a closing remark for our listeners?
Yeah, again, what I said to the pupils yesterday when I met them, dream of your life, but dream also about the society. What world you want to live in, and ask yourself, what can I do to make that happen? And Robert F. Kennedy, Sr., who was so sadly assassinated, he said once, the future is not a gift, it's an achievement. And that I think we should think about.
True. And with that, I would like to thank you again, and I would like to question you guys. What is the kind of future you want to be in, and how do you plan to live there? So to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to The Executive this week. If you found this episode valuable, or you learned something, or you agree or disagree, feel free to leave a comment. And if you want to learn more about SIPRI, the link would be mentioned in the description. Until next time, this is your host, Majid, signing off.